Hello there. I am Jenny Cashman Wilson, and I am the founder of the Abram Wilson Foundation. Welcome to our live webinar. Please let us know where you're from, if you studied music or are studying music, or if you're just starting out. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. I'd also love to just tell you a little bit about the webinar today. We are going to be joined by the awesome bassist and composer Joe Downard. He'll be talking about how to create a portfolio of work and how to develop as an artist. So we'd love to hear from you with any questions that you might have during the session. If we don't manage to get to your questions during the session, don't worry, we will get to them at the end because we've got about 10-15 minutes for a Q&A. So first of all, just a little bit about Joe. He is one of the most in-demand bassists in the UK, so we are super lucky to have him here today. He's widely recognised for his skills as a performer and an improviser. He's a crucial component to many of the UK's top rhythm sections that range from modern contemporary jazz to soul, electronic, Western African music, and loads of other different genres. After making the move to London, he's now very much embedded within the London jazz scene. So he's playing with people like Ashley Henry, Alex Hitchcock, Rachel Cohen, James Beckwith, and Maeli Manzanza. I'm glad I got that right. I think I did. Joe is a graduate from the Royal College of Music. Whilst he was there, he received a Sir Elton John scholarship and the Foundation Prize for Excellence. Fancy. And he can be seen regularly playing in venues across the UK and Europe. His music has been playlisted by BBC Radio 1 Extra and Worldwide FM, and he was listed as one to watch in Bass Guitar magazine. He's also been featured in Jazzwise magazine, and he released his debut album, 7 Japanese Tales, last year with the label Ubuntu. And he did all the promo during the pandemic in 2020 himself. So the label released the record, but Joe kind of got it out there into the world. So he's really in a position to talk to you about being a DIY artist and promoting yourself and your music. We're going to link to his socials and website in the description below so you can get more familiar with his music and follow what he's up to. So I'm just going to invite Joe to join us. Join us in our little virtual world.
Hello.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Very nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
So just before I scooch off, just so everyone is aware, this session is going to last for approximately 45 minutes. So we're going to finish around about 5:45, and there'll be 10 or 15 minutes of questions at the end. So don't worry if you have to leave halfway through or you can't stay till the end. We're recording this video and we're going to be uploading it to our YouTube channel. So please do subscribe. You'll be the first to hear once it's been uploaded. We're also going to be releasing a series of short video tutorials by Joe in October, which is like imminently, that will basically condense all this amazing material into 15 minutes. So if you subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel, you'll be the first to hear about that when that's released. So Joe, I'm just going to hand over to you now.
Great, thank you.
Have a lovely session.
Thanks.
And I will see you in a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Hello, everyone out there. Nice to be talking to you. If you didn't catch Jenny there, my name is Joe Downard. I'm a bass player based here in London. I've been here for 10 years and have sort of embedded myself in the scene. And today I just wanted to talk to you about the idea of developing as a musician and perhaps into an artist, and wherever you want to take yourself as a musician, and just some key foundations into what I did in terms of my progression from starting out on my instrument to now being a session player and a composer and a band leader and someone with an album out. All these options are there for you. So in terms of a bass player, I play the bass, the electric bass, the double bass, the synth bass, sort of trying to make myself as versatile as possible. In terms of composer, I released an album last year, which was the first album I released, having been playing as a sideman for the last 10 years. So it was nice to really express myself with my own music. And as an educator, I'm doing work with the Abram Foundation, and I also teach privately and do rock shops and sort of rock workshops with schools in London. So a real wide range of things that I'm up to at the moment. So and I just wanted to put a question out there to everyone as we get started. It'd be really great to know what instruments you play. So in the comments in the chat box, let's write down your instrument, as it would be nice to know sort of the wide range of instruments you're all playing and what you're learning in school and college. So I know that when I started, the bass was like a really rare instrument to pick up. Everyone all of my friends, they either play the guitar or drums. So I'm hoping that there's some bass players out there, because the world needs more bass players, definitely. And so how did I get into music? I was very lucky at school. I was taught by a great teacher. I was I was around a lot of music when I was a kid, and so I picked up playing the bass. I went to music college. After music college, I moved straight to London to sort of try and be a working musician, and spent 10 years going to jam nights and gigging and playing with artists. And then most recently I went back to studying. So I sort of bookended my career from starting off learning and then going out and being a musician, and then back to college recently, the Royal Academy. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. Like, I've come out of education and now I'm back working. I have my own band. And so it's been quite a journey for me. And so looking at the subject of this seminar is about developing as an artist and building up your portfolio and growing as a musician. And I kind of have like a few main pillars to talk about with that. So being a freelance musician or an original artist in your early stages, musical awareness, and creating a portfolio and building a community around you. I think these are really, really important factors to think about when coming into being a musician. You don't necessarily have to be a full-time musician to take these things really seriously, because it's a great way to develop. And so just a few questions that I'd like you to think about while I'm chatting to you today. Think about the skills that you need. What skills do I need on my instrument that I play, in terms of facility or improvising skills? What do I need to know? What sort of music do I need to learn on my instrument? Do I need to extend my knowledge in terms of knowing the types of styles I can play? What do I need to be ready for? The idea that you might be thrown into a situation that you might not be comfortable with. So, it's worth knowing about those scenarios that you might be in. How can I get to know the right people? This connects with building a community around you. And what other opportunities are there out for me? Just playing an instrument doesn't mean that's the only opportunity there is. There's a lot more out there. So it's just about knowing that your instrument can bring you a whole load of opportunities if you put the work in early on and develop as an artist. And so the first thing I'd like to talk about is practice. Now, I'm sure most of you have teachers who teach you how to play your instrument. And so I'm sort of here to just hark the importance about practice. Practice is something that I still do on the bass or on the guitar or piano. And I think is really important in terms of developing in your early stages and throughout your career. And so I have sort of 5 main pillars that I like to split my practice routine into. And this is something I'd really like you to think about. First of all is technique. Technique is a really important thing to work on all the time on your instrument. It allows you to play your instrument more freely. It allows you to feel comfortable on your instrument, so that when you come to writing a song or improvising, that your body has the facility to express how you feel on your instrument. If you don't quite have the technique, then sometimes that can be a bit of a hindrance, and this is just to do with the way that you hold your instrument, your fingerings on a guitar, or the way your embouchure is on a trumpet, or standing up when you sing to allow, you know, your biggest voice possible. These things are really worth thinking about. The next is like fundamentals. So, you know, the things that we learn early in music class, our scales, our chords, and knowing about these sorts of things are really important. Of course, we don't know them when we start, so it's about exploring these things and learning about fundamentals. I often use a piano as a way, you know, the bass is not a chordal instrument, so how do I learn fundamentals? I sit at a piano and learn about these things and then apply them to my instrument. So these fundamentals are really, really important, and it's really worth spending time in your practice routine to work on that. Scales especially, because scales open up every instrument. It really shows you how to get around your instrument, and you'll get to know your instrument more. The third one is maybe something that when I'm teaching students, they know the least thing about, and that's called transcribing. And that's the idea that you listen to something, a passage of music, or if you listening to a guitar solo and you like that, a certain part of that guitar solo, you listen to that, you absorb that information, you copy it, so you learn to play it note by note along with the record, and then you try and develop that and bring it into your own playing. There's nothing wrong with playing that line in your own playing, because it eventually will start to develop your own sound, and you're letting somebody else's playing really influence your own. And that's really, really important. If you think about word of mouth in terms of like language, how people learn language, it's about listening to other people. And so that's the same with music. And you know, you hear a lot of jazz harmony, for example, coming from, you'll hear examples of perhaps classical music in jazz, because jazz is very inspired by that sort of thing. So that's a real example of that. The fourth one I think is really important, and this is sort of like a free range approach to practice. And this is just what I like to call free expressive playing. And the idea that, you know, you spend time, part of your day, part of your practice routine, just playing freely on your instrument, just expressing yourself, playing whatever comes to mind. You could be improvising, or you could be playing a song you know, or trying to play a song that you know in a different style. And this is really, really important, that you sort of free yourself of the reins of practicing technique, fundamentals, and transcribing, and you just allow yourself to play. You might have some cool new guitar pedals that you want to try out. You know, give yourself the time to really experiment with them and just go wild, really. You know, so I do that on the bass. I like to just play my bass solo at home, just to allow myself to express myself. And the last thing, the fifth sort of pillar of my practice, is listening, active listening. The idea that listening to music can still be classed as practice. You know, there's one thing listening to music on the bus or when you're walking through the park or something like that. But I want you to try and just give yourself maybe once a week, sit down and really listen to an album. Or if you don't have time for a whole album, just like one track. You know, that would be a really great way to actively listen. You just sit down and you just listen to music. Don't look at your phone while you're doing it, things like that. And you really just try and take in all of the things that are happening in the music that you like. And so it'd be really great if you're there to put in, I'd love to know some of your favorite music. Again, like knowing which instruments you will play. It'd be great to get an idea of the types of music that you're all into, because, you know, when I'm teaching in schools, it's amazing to see like the wide range of music people listen to, and the fact that, and I always like to try and get people to listen to somebody else's music, you know. So if there's music comes up in the chat box and it's someone that you've not heard of before, or music that you've not listened to before, then give it a go and listen to something that you've not listened to before, and really try and take in what you're listening to. And so this goes into one of my second parts I'm talking about today, which is about musical awareness and the idea that we play our instrument and it might belong to a certain genre. The trumpet might be a more classical instrument, and the guitar may be a more rock-based instrument. But musical awareness is really, really important. And so listening to different styles of music all the time is a really great way of staying musically aware. I listen to music a lot at home, but also like like a lot of us when we're traveling and things like that. And I love to use that time to really listen to different types of music, listen to different genres of music where my instrument is currently, so the double bass can be in classical music, can be in jazz music, can be in some hip hop music in hip hop samples or ska music and things like that. So it's really important for me as a bass player to be musically aware. And so this is one way of really developing your ear as an artist and your knowledge of music in general, is to be super aware musically. And so it's a really great way of basically just developing your ear. And so if someone says, oh, I want you to join my rock band or something like that, and you play the trumpet, for example, and you listen to rock music all the time, then at least you know that you're musically aware of the music that you're going to be part of. And also, if you're listening to a lot of music, if you're listening to a lot of music all the time, changing genres all the time, this can really inspire yourself. This can really inspire you as a creative to open your ears. And so it would be really great to know what sort of things inspire you. Hey, Lucy. Okay, I see that you like a bunch of different genres: jazz, classic, rock, indie, hip hop, dance, right? So that's great. So that's such a wide range of things. And you'll be surprised how those genres are all influenced by each other. And it's a great way of being aware by knowing all of these genres. You don't have to be a master of one if you don't, or you can be a master of one if you want, but to have a broad spectrum of music that you like is a really great way of staying grounded as a musician, staying aware as a musician, and being musically aware so that you can be in any situation and feel comfortable in playing that music. And as I was saying just a second ago, it's a great way of letting it inspire you and your music. And, and it's another great thing is letting other things inspire your music away, not just music. So things like art, literature, anything really that might inspire you and your writing. The idea that letting other art forms can inspire you is a really great way of thinking to try and be original. So I recently wrote an album, and it was inspired by a book that I was reading. I was studying it at college, and at the same time I was reading this book of 7 short stories. It was called 7 Japanese Tales, which is the name of my album. And at that time I felt really inspired by the book I was reading, and I was writing music at the same time. And I found myself being inspired by this book, which I hadn't experienced before. I was obviously inspired by music, and that's why I was writing and felt creative, but I felt like this book was inspiring me. So, and so what I did was I wrote, each tune I wrote was inspired by each short story. So I let those short stories really influence the way I felt and really change the way that I was composing for each tune. And so it would be a really great thing for you to think about in terms of if let's say you're writing music, if you like to write music, it would be great to see if you could let other things influence you. So it'd be nice to know what things really influence you and inspire you. So if you have anything in the comments section to add about that, that'd be great to see, because if, say, for example, you like walking in the park, or your family inspire you, or friends, these are really great ways to get your creative juices flowing in terms of writing, because sometimes it's quite hard to find ideas out of nowhere. So if you surround yourself by lots of music and lots of things that inspire you, this is a really great way of developing as an artist and as a musician. You know, even if you don't write music, you might feel like something inspires your playing, you know, if you're not writing songs. And so that's what I did for my album. And my album, I guess you could call it a concept album, really, is the idea that I let something else influence myself through a book, and that book inspired the music that I wrote, and I named it after that. So with these ideas of like a foundation in mind, practice, writing music, and starting to build these ideas in the early stages of your career being a musician, it's important nowadays to start thinking about building up a portfolio of the music that you're creating, or the art form, or your artistic output, you know. And what do I mean by building a portfolio? So first of all, the most important thing is composing music, writing music, however you want to label it. And this might be a melody that you write, or this could be a full song that you write, or an orchestration of something that you compose. I'm not sure what level you're all at, but you know, anything really counts as composing, and it's really important that you keep that creative process flowing all the time. It's really hard to get started, or some of you might find that your creative output is flowing, but the idea that you're constantly trying to compose, writing little melodies, whistling a tune and writing it down, this is all helping to develop a portfolio for yourself. You know, you're building a catalog of compositions and writing, and you're getting used to the idea of writing music. And secondly, writing it down. Okay, we might be in the early stages of our music, but if we know the chords that we're writing, or if you have a teacher that could help you write your melodies down, if you have a melody which has rhythm and notes, you know, they could help you write that down. And this is creating this portfolio, this sort of this physical pack of like tunes that you're writing, or if you have lyrics that you're writing, or if you have written a practice routine for yourself, it's really important to write these down. Or if you have written like a scale practice, a scale idea for yourself, it's really important that you are able to write these down. And so if you're just in the early stages of learning to read music and write music, that's great, because essentially it's a language that people can understand worldwide. And so it's really important to learn about that sort of thing. Thirdly, sorry, in terms of creating this portfolio, is recording yourself. Of course, we now have so many ways of recording ourselves. With the advent of like the phone or the handheld recorders, we don't need to go into a big studio now.
Hello there. I think Joe's just having a little bit of technical issues with the Wi-Fi, so I thought I'd just pop in and say hi. Oh, there you are, Joe. Everything okay?
Oh, hi. Yeah, sorry. Is my connection being very unstable?
It was for a second. I think it's
Okay.
sort of, it's a little bit bumpy, but overall it's been
Sorry about
fine.
sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I'll leave you to it. I'll just hop
Okay,
back in
great.
if you freeze
Yeah,
again.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Sorry about that. I seem to live in a place where the internet isn't great, but yeah. So creating demos is kind of a really great way to build a portfolio of what you're creating and gather a timeline of how you develop as an artist. It could be a 10-second idea on your guitar, or you singing a melody on the bus. But now we have this capacity to record these things on our telephones, in the press of one button. So creating demos is a great way of building this portfolio of what you're doing. If you're able to go write a whole tune and go into a recording studio, that's even better. But don't feel pressured that just because you're creating, you can't capture that. You can do it on a phone. I have hundreds of little voice memos of bass ideas or melodies, or if I record a jam session, so I can take ideas from that. That's a really great way of building this portfolio. Another way of building it is to collaborate with people. If your friend plays the guitar and you play the bass, get together and write music together. Build this community around yourself to start this portfolio, so that you can look back in the years and go like, right, well, we wrote those songs together, and oh, here it is on a piece of paper. Let's develop that idea and start creating this bed behind yourself in terms of like your creative output. And then lastly, of course, we live in a modern age now, and the idea that your music can't be heard if it's not out there is something that's really true at the moment. And if you have access to it, it's really great to put your music up on a platform if you feel like it's ready for people to listen to. You can use sites like obviously YouTube, SoundCloud, Bandcamp. There's probably some other things that even I don't know about now. But SoundCloud was a really great way for me when I was younger in music college. I was doing some home producing, and I was uploading my tracks there, so they were private. And then if someone was like, oh, are you making any music at the moment, I could send them a private link. So it's a really great way of recording yourself and building up this portfolio. So again, you can look back and be like, wow, I've really got a body of work here musically. So there's no pressure to do this right away, but it's just worth thinking about the idea of like building up a sort of virtual CD of just like everything you're doing. Even if it's a 10-second idea to a 10-minute idea, you'll want those at some point when you're like looking for an idea to write in a tune or something. You'll be like, oh, what was that thing I did like a year ago? And there you'll have it in your sort of online portfolio or wherever you're storing your music. So, and a quick question, it'd be nice to know if any of you out there have a way of recording yourself. It would be really nice to know that you have access to that. I know that obviously some people don't, but if you have a mobile phone and you have the capabilities of recording, that would be really great to see. And like I said earlier, the different levels of capturing your sound in the early stages, hopefully we will have a mobile phone that has a recording software in it. Use that daily whenever you can. Record ideas quickly, or record a jam session, or record a whole gig. And then moving on, you might want to develop the way you can record yourself. So, with a microphone and a handheld recorder, and eventually you might get into home recording, which is a really, really amazing way now for people to produce their own music and to create their own songs. And someone has a microphone and speakers and a keyboard, you basically got a band in your house. And so it's a really great way. So, but all three of these levels of capturing yourself in your early stages is a really great way of building up that portfolio. And so with that sort of audio portfolio, we now want to think about building these platforms for ourselves. Again, we live in an age now where we want these like online portfolios, platforms to put our music. So creating music to a platform to put our music onto center, maybe a record label, or someone that's interested in your music, someone that wants to book you for an open mic night or book you for a gig. You can be like, great, here's my music. And that's because you've put it onto these platforms. And it's a great way of just easily sending things. And so in a top level, for me, for example, I have a website, and a website is a really great way for me to basically keep this sort of online portfolio of what I'm doing. And so here's a little example of like what my website, a few screen grabs from my website. So, I have my landing page with my face on it in big and bold. I have all my socials, a place where people can buy my music. I have like a series of videos of me playing the bass so people can see me playing. I have my tour schedule. I have photos of me and sort of collaborations that I'm doing, a place for people to buy my music and listen to it, and also quotes. And so for me now, this is really my portfolio, where people can visit my site, they can listen to my music, buy my music, see what people have said about my music, which is a really great way. And obviously, if you're in your early stages, this is not something that you need to do straight away, but it's something worth thinking about. You know, if you feel like you have an output and you want people to hear it, social media is a great place for that. And you can build an image and a brand around your music with Instagram or Twitter, and you can really put your music out there with those platforms. So we're lucky in a way that we've got these resources now where you can put your music up there and have the world to hear it. So anybody? Okay, yeah, Lucy, you're recording just on your phone. Great. I mean, that's honestly, that's exactly where I started, to be honest. I was using voice memos on my phone, and I would just like record so many, to a point where I accidentally ended up with like 100 unnamed voice memos that were like maybe like 20 seconds long. So can you imagine like having to go through those after that? But you know, make sure you label what you're recording so that you know what you're creating, and you can always go back to them or just date them so that you know at least when you recorded them. And Anna, using Audacity before at school. Okay, so would that have been maybe that would have been for recording into, which is great. Again, you know, all you need is a platform basically to just, you know, record into and create these again, like I said, these portfolios of your work. This is really, really important. And it's kind of what I did before recording the album, actually. I did a lot of demoing, and that was like, you know, it started maybe on me playing the piano, and then it moved on to me sort of recording it into something similar to Audacity, a project called Logic, and then developing that idea to then eventually have a live band in the studio with me. So the idea that I started with a phone, and that ended up with me with an album, having recorded it in the studio, you know, it goes to show that, you know, don't knock the humble mobile phone in terms of creating these portfolios of work. Okay, and lastly, we're looking at building your artistic community around you. What do I mean by this? Because, you know, you're probably like, I've got mates and things like that. But of course, that's one thing. But we like to think of it as this word called networking. So you're building this network of people around you that are part of this community of you as an artist. You know, of course, you're finding someone at school that might have access to a recording studio, or you might have access to someone, or you might know someone whose friend runs a music venue and they're going to let you put a gig on there. You know, this idea that you're building a community around you is a great way to ensure that throughout your career you have these platforms, these people to rely on, and these people to build off of, you know, because at the end of the day, it's really, really hard to just do it on your own. And building up the skills to contact people, to contact record labels. You know, once you've built your portfolio as an artist, you might have an album's worth of music, and it's very hard to just connect with people out of the blue, because record labels get sent hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. So it's about building connections with people where you can make a more holistic approach into the places where you want to be as an artist, whether you want to be a session player, or you want to be in an orchestra, or you want to be a composer. You know, it's about slowly building your way there, rather than assuming that people are going to be there for you. And like, as an example, when I first moved to London, there was a jam night that I went to. Jam nights are these things where you go and you just play freely. For example, this one was a jazz night, so we were playing jazz music, and I knew that this jazz night was on every Monday night. And so when I first moved to London, I cycled there on my bike every Monday night for a year. Of course, I was there to play music, but also it was for me to like build this community around me of friends, and the people that I play with today, 10 years later, are all of those same people that were at that jam night as well. So we all had the same idea that it was like, we're there for the music and we're there to meet people and build a community around us, because it's really, really important. At the end of the day, music is a communal thing, and it's really hard to do on your own. So you've got to think about building relations and, you know, collaborating with people, playing music with other people, and connecting with people on a musical level and a friendship level, because it's really important for your development. And if you look after that, that people will look after you. And so we come to the end slightly now, where we think about those questions I brought up earlier. Like, what skills do I need? So just, it'd be worth just thinking about that when you're, as you're progressing, you know, what skills do I need on my instrument to get to where I want to be? Do I need to know certain jazz scales to be a jazz player and things like that? Thinking about those questions. What do I need to know? Again, the idea, like, what do I really need to know on my instrument to really develop? What do I need to be ready for? You know, so with that, if you have a portfolio of work behind you, you're ready for anything really. If you've got a body of work, or you have your ideas behind you, and you really feel confident that you're growing as an artist, that's a really great way to feel confident. How and where can I get to know the right people? Again, like I said, that's just about communicating, building communities around you, collaborating, which is really important. And also the idea that music is not just a thing to do on your own. You really want to look to create with other people. And what jobs or what other opportunities might be out there? I say this because I think that sometimes, you know, the idea that you play one instrument might pigeonhole you, but there's so many other options. If you're a guitar player, you could be a songwriter for someone, or you could orchestrate from your guitar and things like that. Or as a trumpet player, you might also like doing string arrangements and things like that. So there's a whole wide range of things out there. But one last thing I really wanted to say in all of this, and you know, it might be quite a lot of the information I've said, maybe quite overwhelming, but really the main thing to sort of focus on in your progression as a musician is just to be really honest with yourself, and not let anybody else influence how you sound, or who you want to be, or who you want to sound like. As long as you're honest with yourself, you'll always create the best music, and people will always know when someone is being most honest with themselves, and the music will really sound the best. So enjoy the music you're playing. Make sure you have fun with it. Make sure you enjoy practicing, enjoy recording, and just enjoy being a musician, because we're in a lucky position to be able to play music. So enjoy it and be really honest with yourself, and you'll find the best results come that way. It's a long journey, but stick with it and you'll be happy being musicians and creative artists in the future. So yeah, that's me for today. So I'd like to bring Jenny back into the room. And
Hey,
oh,
thanks so much for that, Joe.
thank you.
That was a really lovely note to end on.
Great.
It
Well,
was
yeah,
deep.
it's important. You know, I think even myself, I sometimes get caught up in maybe ticking boxes for people, or ticking boxes for myself, or ticking boxes for what I think is needed, and forget that if you just really try and sound like yourself, often people gravitate to that more than if you're trying to sound like someone else, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And it takes a while to like also figure out how to sound like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Do you know what I mean?
an endless search.
Yeah, so I kind of feel
A
like,
good one, though.
the sort of advice about it being a long journey is true. And like how you sound today will also be different to how you sound in 5 years' time, because your influences will have changed and you will have experienced different things. And so, It's a work in progress always,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and you know, like you say, you sound different from today to tomorrow because things might influence you, and it's okay. Your influences might be different to somebody else's, and so to not worry about that, I think that's important as well.
Yeah, 100%. Try not to be somebody else. Just
Yeah,
try and do you is really
yeah,
great advice. And I think possibly like the hardest advice to follow because we live in such a comparison culture these days, don't we? It's so easy to
you
compare
do.
ourselves to others and to
Yeah,
try and copy others and be like others when actually the most interesting thing is when you're just yourself.
yeah, of course, yeah,
But I think, yeah, sometimes that's harder to realize when you're younger, especially when
of
you're younger and,
course, yeah.
it's
Which is why I really like to gauge, like in a classroom, what people's musical tastes are, because often they're actually really different across the board. And so you're like, oh, actually, all these people are completely independent, yet social society, it makes them all almost like walk in the same line. Yet they've
yeah.
all got these different musical tastes, and I'm like, wow, express that. That's amazing, So
Yeah, definitely. I was chatting to one of our mentees the other day. Well, this was actually a few weeks ago now, but we were just talking about how when he was younger, he was really into like sort of punk rock, and then
mm,
he kind of went down sort of the jazz route, and
yeah,
recently he's kind of come back to this music that he really loved, and I was like, well, that's such an interesting combination, and
wow,
someone would
yeah,
absolutely love that. That's really unique to you.
that's right.
Um, so yeah, he got really excited about that and was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to go back and explore my punk rock days. So yeah, see what comes out of that one.
That'd be great.
Um, Anyway, I've got some questions for you, Joe, if
Great.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Like a sort of rapid round of like 10 or 15 minutes.
Quick fire.
First question is Lucy would like to know what's the best and worst thing about being a professional musician?
Um, being a professional musician, or I guess, okay,
Hmm.
professional musician.
Like the
Well, I
best thing
guess
about it, and then the worst thing about it.
the best thing about it being a professional musician, I might whittle it down a little bit. Being a professional bass player, I mean, for me, I'm really lucky. I get to play so many different genres of music. So one day I might be playing a jazz gig in a jazz club on a Saturday night, and then next I might be playing with a singer songwriter. And so that like wide range of music that I get to play, that is the best thing. I really love that. The worst thing is, wow, to be honest, I've never felt bad about being a professional musician. Okay, I tell you the worst thing is not having weekends. Weekends don't exist because everyone wants music on the weekend. So
Yeah,
my
so
days are
you're
basically 7 days a week.
right. So 7 day a week job.
Yeah,
What
24
about
hours a day. Apart
basically
from
if you really
Christmas
like
Day.
sleep?
Yeah, I have been asked to do gigs on Christmas Day, and that's like the only one I'm just like, no way, no way. So yeah, I think that would be it. It's like the greatest thing is just being able to play so many styles, meet so many people, travel. I do a lot of traveling with my playing, which is amazing. And the worst, I guess, is just, you know, music doesn't really ever sleep. So, if you want to do it, you've really got to commit. It doesn't make it a bad thing. But my wife
Yeah.
would maybe say a few Sundays or Saturdays off would be nice. But.
Yeah, and I guess that's about learning to say no and thinking about what kind of lifestyle you want, and
Yeah.
that kind of helps to sort
I
of
think nowadays, having a lot of time to think over the last year, um, like you say, you don't have to say yes to everything. It just depends what direction you want to go in. When I first started playing in London, of course, I said yes to absolutely everything. But you've got to do that regardless of what the music is or what you're getting paid. It's all experience, and it's all really develops you as a musician. And not to say that now I do that, but maybe perhaps if I just need some time off, I'm now lucky in a position where I can take time off. But essentially, I'm still a yes man. If someone asks me to play in their band, I'm like, if I'm free, yes. That's kind of me. So
Good. Well, that works for you, right?
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
I think maybe
exactly.
for other people, it's more about getting on the no train. But I think you're right. I think when
Yeah,
you start out and you've got all the energy and you're figuring it out and you're trying to get to know people, you do need to say yes a lot. But then it kind of gets to a point where you're like, God, I really can't do everything.
yeah,
And I am
yeah,
actually going to have to start saying no to people. I think
yeah.
that can actually be quite hard.
Definitely.
Getting on that no train. Okay,
But
so
I would just add,
yeah.
in the early stages, just definitely don't take music for granted. Do everything you can. If if it affects your mental well-being or anything, obviously, take a step back. But just do everything you can, because music is just the most amazing thing. So yeah.
It is so true. Um, okay, what or who inspired you to become a professional musician?
um, I was very lucky. My bass teacher at school was a guy called Herbie Flowers. He was a really great bass player who played on with like Lou Reed and David Bowie, and he's really great. And just for some reason, he was teaching at my school. And
And he had a great name.
yeah, before that, my dad had basically really exposed me just to an amazing amount of music when I was a kid. And so going to school and meeting this music teacher, I was really into football and sport when I went to school, and just maybe it was the sort of subliminal music that I was brought up around, and this guy Herbie was teaching me bass because I wanted to play an instrument, and just from then he kind of taught me about. He didn't really teach me to play the bass because I sort of naturally picked it up. He just taught me about being a musician, and the bass being my sort of weapon of choice in a way, and showed me that you can be really broad in terms of the music you do and what you like listening to and what you can write and who you can play with, and that just really inspired me. And he never really told me to go to music college or really follow it. Really, all he did was support me musically, and it just inspired me, and it sort of snowballed from there.
Wow, that's an
Yeah,
incredible story.
yeah.
How did you wind up picking the bass and how old were you?
I was literally, my best friend at school was like playing the bass. He was like, "Oh, I'm just off to a bass lesson. Do you want to come?" I was like, "Oh, what's the bass?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come." And then um, I went to this lesson, and this guy was like this amazingly eccentric like bass teacher, and I remember just running home and being like, "Dad, I really want to play the bass." And my dad was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, the bass teacher, he's like this guy. His name's like something flowers." And my dad was like, "What, Herbie Flowers?" And my dad had played the bass when he was younger, and so Herbie's like most famous for playing like the Walk on the Wild Side bass line, like the classic thing. And so my dad was like, "No, it can't be him. It wouldn't be Herbie Flowers." And so my dad came in one day, and I remember him standing at the back of the classroom with like his like jaw on the floor, being like, "Oh wow, it really is Herbie Flowers. Okay, yeah, you can learn the bass at school." So
How
that
old
was
were you?
about 12.
I love the fact that your dad thought that as a 12-year-old you'd managed to make up this
Yeah,
character
yeah,
called Herbie Flowers.
yeah. And I remember my dad just like shocked and was like, "Oh yeah, he wasn't lying. Let's go get you a bass."
Wow. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
very
that's such
lucky.
a
Yeah,
cool story. And how
yeah,
lucky to have been taught by him.
yeah. It's
So
very lucky.
important, isn't it? Great teachers. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
so, um, what advice, if you could kind of like go back and speak to your 15-year-old self, what advice would you give that person?
As a musician,
Hmm.
um, to write more when I was younger. I think I left it really late, but only because as a bass player, I was so caught up in being like a yes man, and just playing for other people. I maybe didn't take enough time for myself in the early stages to sit down and write music or write music with other people. I did do a bit of writing in like a rock band and things like that when I was younger, but I wish that maybe I had like learned the piano better and written music more, composed a little bit more. That's all really. That's only the thing. I would just be like, really try and make your creative output as much as possible. Like I said, whether it's a 10-second idea or a 10-minute idea, perhaps that's the one thing I would say is like really try and do that as much as you can.
Good advice.
Yeah, if it's like a melody, if you set yourself a challenge of writing a 1-bar melody a day, you know, that would be enough to just be like, wow, you would notice your creative output.
So true. It's like compound investing, you
Yeah,
know, little
because
and often
I
over
often
time builds up.
I often sit there and wait for inspiration to come, thinking like, oh well, it'll come, but actually it doesn't, and you have to sit at your instrument and play through the lack of inspiration, and then suddenly it'll come.
Yeah, it's so much of it is about that kind of that discipline to have a regular practice. And even if it's just 5 minutes a day of writing, those 5 minutes every day add up to something. And so over the years,
You'll be really surprised.
you know what I mean? Like if you imagine if you'd started writing 5 minutes a day when you were 12,
Yeah.
like how
Well,
much
I'd done
material you
that.
would have ended up with over the years. It's like,
Well,
oh, actually, that's worth it.
when I went to the Royal Academy to do my masters a few years ago, I kind of did that. Basically, I was like, anytime you walk, if you've got the time, anytime you walk past a room with a piano and no one's sitting at it, just go in there and play for like 5 minutes or for however long you've got. You know, if you're good. And again, like you say, it was that compound investment in terms of it made me way more creative, and it made the ideas come flowing in way more than if I was like, right, I'm going to sit down for 4 hours and I'm going to try and write a song. It just doesn't really work like that. And so if you let life intertwine with you doing little bits of playing and creative things, you'll find that your creative output is way more true and honest as well.
And easier because you're practicing that muscle, like you say. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
great
definitely.
advice. Really good. Okay, what are the 5 tracks you couldn't live without, Joe?
Oh wow.
Mm.
Crikey,
You've got
you
five
put that on
minutes.
me.
You've got a minute a track. Yeah, a minute for each
Okay.
track,
Okay.
max.
Okay. Okay. So definitely, definitely "So What" by Miles Davis,
Classic.
because that's like just a real perfect example of like balanced music for in my eyes. I think everything is perfect in that track. Down to the bass, the drums, obviously Miles Davis, everything is just perfect in my eyes.
It's an amazing track.
The most perfect song. I couldn't live without that. I think I could sing the solo backwards by now. I've listened to it so many times.
I'm not going to make you do that,
No,
although
don't do
I'm
that.
tempted.
No, please don't do that. Okay, song. Okay, what were we at? Okay, "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye, because that's like bass player heaven, because that's like James Jamerson, Motown. That's just perfect, amazing. There's a classical composer called Messiaen, and he has a suite called Quartet for the End of Time. I can't remember what movement it is, but there's like this really haunting like cello thing, and I think it's the most amazing thing. And it was a piece of music that he wrote in the concentration camps, and the first time it was ever written was by the other Jewish musicians in that camp. So there's that one. So that's 3.
Wow, that's really deep.
Yeah, it's really deep. I would "Blowing in the Wind" by Bob Dylan. I think that's a really like. I think he just is so important lyrically, and like just he sort of encompasses that. And then what's kind of my 5th one? I think it's got to be maybe like something that really has everything in it, like maybe like a Stevie Wonder tune or something. Like no, I'm gonna just say an album. It's gonna be like "Songs in the Key of Life," because that just has that album has everything. So that's 4 tracks and 1 album.
Okay, you slightly cheated, but because it's Stevie, I'm going to give it to you.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I feel like I'm going to ask you one more question and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, great.
And you're only allowed to choose one, Joe. Sorry. But what's the most memorable performance you have ever attended?
That I've ever attended. I went to see The Who when I was younger. And they
Wow,
were like my
my
favorite.
dungarees just went,
Yeah, yeah.
what?
I was really into rock when I was younger, and my dad surprised me one day, and we drove up to. They were playing in Hyde Park. Obviously, Keith Moon wasn't alive, but saw The Who. That was it. Because they were like my favorite band. So
How old were you?
probably 16, 17. So it wasn't long
Okay.
ago, but it was like, you know, all the guys were in it. Although Entwistle wasn't in it, but still, it was like Pete Townsend, you know, Pino Palladino on the bass, you know. So it was just, you know, it was amazing. So,
Incredible. What a great gig for your dad to take you
yeah,
to at that age.
yeah,
That's
yeah. Well, he was a mod when he was younger,
okay.
or he likes to say he was.
I mean, we'll believe
There's
him,
no
right?
scooter in his garage, so I don't believe him.
Okay. Well, I mean, sorry, Dad.
Yeah,
Sorry, Joe's dad, if you're watching this. We
but
don't
yeah,
believe you.
I would say that. I want to say
Good.
it. Now I've said one, I've got about 5
You
in my head.
can't. No, that's it. We're going to wrap up now.
Okay.
But thank you so much. That was great. I loved it. Loved all of it. So lovely to have you here in our little virtual world. So for those of you who are watching, please leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you and get your sort of feedback on this session. It helps to inform future sessions. As we mentioned, we're recording this one, so that's going to get uploaded to our YouTube channel soon. We've also got a series of short webinar, not webinar, this is a webinar, short music tutorial videos that Plum and Joe recently filmed. They're going to be released soon. So really great reason to subscribe to our YouTube channel, so you'll be the first to know and be notified when all of that's released and uploaded. Please do share this webinar with anyone who you think would appreciate checking it out. We've also got like over 20 other videos now on our YouTube channel. So yeah, from other artists like Oscar Jerome and Sanssouci and Arjun Manuel Pillay. And we've got like another series that we're going to be releasing next term as well. So just keep an eye out for that. Plum, as I mentioned before, she's got the video tutorials coming up. She also did a webinar last week. So that's been uploaded. You can check that out if you missed it. And then I think that's it for today. So yeah, once again, massive thanks to you, Joe. You can follow him on socials, and we'll put all of that in the video description below and on his website, which is joedownard.com. Super easy. So you can kind of connect to him through that as well. Thanks to the Abram Wilson team for making this all happen and being amazing behind the scenes. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully see you guys soon. Bye, Joe.
Bye. See you later.